Hi everyone and welcome to our Publish for Profit live session for the week. My name is Blaise Van Heck and
I'm Les Zigamanis.
so we're from Busybird Publishing and we are, in case you can't read, every week we check in with everybody and we talk about something to do with writing, publishing, books, whatever is around that subject. So I wanted to remind people who are coming to our open mic night tonight that we are officially launching The Shadow in the Wind by Lazarus Zigamanis tonight at open mic night, which starts at 7 p.m. So, Les.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk about editing.
We should get an editor on.
Now, you and I actually met at an editing and publishing course.
Yeah.
100 years ago, it feels like.
It was 100 years ago.
Why do you think it's important for people to have their work edited?
Because whenever you're expressing yourself in any way, and particularly if you're expressing yourself over a long form like a book, there's going to be issues. Nothing comes out perfectly formed. So you're going to have queries of coherency, cohesiveness, I can't pronounce that. Cohesion, sorry, that's what I'm going to say. Let's say that first one. Structure, overriding, underwriting, character development, all that sort of stuff. And, you know, too many people, particularly the experienced writers, think, I wrote it, it's done, it's finished, send it out into the world. And you find that, like, the more experienced a writer is, the more they revise and the more they're insecure about it because they know things can be wrong with it.
Yeah.
So too many people, or too many experienced writers, and I think it's a rite of passage because I used to think that way also, believe, you know, I wrote it, I give it a quick once over, it's good to go. Mm-hmm. It's not. You shouldn't. Don't.
So you have now published
112 books.
5 books.
Yeah, technically.
So, and every one of those you had a...
Every one of those was the first draft. Every one of those, yes, sorry, it was edited.
Yes.
Yep.
What did you learn, or do you think that each time you publish a book and you have it edited, that you find out what your idiosyncrasies are and that you improve your work, or is it hard to get rid of those sort of things?
I think you're constantly improving as a writer. You're constantly evolving. It's one of the few fields where age generally doesn't matter. You know, it's not like sports people have about a 10-15 year window and that sort of thing. You're constantly improving and evolving as a writer. And when you get edited, you learn about your quirks. And I always look at it like, when you write, you have this filter, and that filter lets in all these wrong things. It's like this big. But as you develop your abilities as a writer, you start learning things and that filter closes. So things you might have done last year, you no longer do in your first drafts. And it keeps narrowing, but it always remains open because writing is, you know, again, with a long form, it is impossible to keep track of how well it's paced, how well it's developed, and what issues there might come up.
And I think too, as you're writing, you don't really want to worry about that stuff so much in the first drafts because you want to get the story out. If you're worrying too much about how good the writing is or your grammar or spelling or all of that kind of thing, that can actually slow the writing down, can't it?
Yeah, well, you should always write, but in terms of, as you develop, I mean, you generally won't be thinking about those things because you will learn that's the important thing, is just to get the story out, or whatever it is, if it's a non-fiction book, to get it out on the page, and then you can work with it.
Yeah.
But Stephen King had a really good analogy in his excellent book On Writing, where he said he felt like writing a book was like discovering an artifact, and you dig it out of the ground, it's covered in mud, and then as you write and revise, it's like chipping away the mud to reveal the artifact itself.
Yeah.
And the better you can do it, the more you can reveal that artifact. Yeah. You go, sometimes you totally reveal it all, and other times you probably leave a bit of muck on it because you don't quite get it. But he really just talked about, again, the importance of working on your own writing until it does stand up for itself.
Yeah. So we have a lot of people who come to us and say, my book has been edited, and I would say 90% of the time when we start doing a layout, because they said it doesn't need editing, I would say 90% of the time.
100% of the time. 100% of the time.
Well, it depends. If they've had a professional
100%
book
of the
editor,
time.
which is rare, most of the time it's sort of someone they know who's good at editing, or it may even be an editor, but
It's
there's
generally
a
better.
difference between editing, say, an essay or an article to a whole book. It's a very different skill.
I mean, too many times we get people coming in saying, it does need to be edited. My neighbour edited it and he's a year 10 English teacher. Or my cousin edited it and they've written the book.
Yeah.
Or my dog edited it and he's eaten some homework. None of these people have actually the capabilities of an editor. They have capabilities for whatever their skill set is. You know, we get things from like people who work in fields of English and they still have issues.
Yeah.
It's because editing is a specialised skill set. You know, it's not like saying, hey, I can play tennis because I know how to swing a baseball bat. They're two totally different skill sets.
And just being good at spelling doesn't mean that you...
Well, spelling's the easiest thing to fix because there's a spell checker.
Yeah. If you trust word spell checker.
It's generally pretty good. You can't trust this grammar checker, but the spell checker will generally get things right. But in terms of analysing the book as a whole, you need someone who can actually read and absorb all that information and then articulate what you need to look at.
Yeah. So when it comes to actually laying it out, quite often either whoever's doing the layout will even though they're not meant to be looking for any issues with the text, you can't help but see it when you're laying it out. So quite often someone will see things like inconsistencies in, English versus
American English versus British
spelling, or different forms of punctuation being mixed between the UK and the US, or even uses of apostrophes.
Yeah.
So many people get apostrophes wrong. Double quotation marks around dialogue.
I mean, one of the things I think is the most telling is we get a book and people say, okay, it's fine to go and it doesn't need editing or whatever, and then we start to lay it out. And then when we send it back to the author for proofing, they then start revising because they're seeing the material in a different form for the first time, and that forces their mind to reabsorb the information like it's seeing it anew. But it shows that, you know what, you wouldn't be revising to that extent if the book was fine before it went to layout.
Yes.
And too often we get that. We get authors say, I want to change this, I want to add this, I want to do this. And layout, it's too late by that stage to really be making that sort of change.
It makes it a much longer process, doesn't it? So many people have said, no, we don't need editing, and we say, okay, well, that's fine, but once you get it into editing and you start making those changes, everything moves, and then it ends up taking probably as long and cost as much.
It costs more.
Yeah, quite often costs more, and makes people both sides grumpy because you're getting so frustrated with it.
And it is a lot more difficult because the layout is a house of cards. So once you have it all balanced, you don't want to be making significant changes at that stage. And if you change, let's say, well, can I rewrite this page and add this much more text? But everything from that point will move.
Yeah.
And if everything from that point moves, there's always a risk that then the designer has to go, and from that point, just redo the layout like they're doing it from scratch.
Yeah.
So you're actually adding more work, and that incurs expense because that's not the stage to be rewriting.
Yeah. What if a lot of people say they don't really care if there's a lot of issues with the writing?
There's a technical term for those people. They're idiots. It's just...
Oscar's just brought in a stick and he's munching it away down here.
It's, if you've ever read a book and found an error, or you've watched a movie and seen a problem, you become alert to the fact that there might be issues. And then if you see another error, then you stop investing in the story or whatever the content is, and you start looking for problems with the material.
Yeah.
Now, that's not what you want the reader to do. You want the reader to just sink into your story, your non-fiction book, whatever it is, and just be totally invested in it and not actually be on patrol for problems with the copy. So if you think, oh, my idea is so great, I don't need it edited, people will just be so, wowed by my idea. No, they won't. People will just think it's a sloppy presentation, and if you've taken that little care of your book, why should they invest in your message?
Yeah. I think even aside from all the kind of line by line stuff, the grammar and the spelling and the voice and all of that kind of thing, the structure is really important to make sure that's right before you do anything, isn't it? before you go into editing even. And I think a lot of people, they don't understand structure so well.
No, I mean, that's why something like a manuscript assessment's pivotal, because it's a report on your book that actually talks about stuff like the content, the structure, the plot, the copy, if it's non-fiction, the message that you're trying to sell and all that. And it gives you a really good idea of what to look for, so you can then go back to your book and attack it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting that you look at, I know a number of successful Australian authors who, before they even turn their book over to their publisher, they will have a group of readers read it, get feedback, and try and incorporate all the feedback they've taken, and then go to an editor. And when the editor comes back with what they should be looking for, you know, they will welcome it because they know it's improving their content.
Yeah.
You know, they don't sort of go, it doesn't need it. It's ridiculous.
And I think too, at the end of the day, what people don't realise is, even though there are a lot of people involved in the production of a book, you know, there's obviously the writer, and then there are those readers, and then editors and designers and all of that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's got your name on it.
Yep.
And so no one even realises that most books are edited. So the editor is really an unsung hero.
The editor's anonymous in the process for the most part.
But the thing is too, that anything wrong with the book is sort of a reflection of the author.
Yeah.
Because it's their name on that product. So even if you do get it edited and it isn't well edited, no one's gonna say, oh, you had that editor X, Jane, the editor or whatever, is a crappy editor. They're just gonna look at you because you have allowed that to go through.
If you look at analogies, I mean, it's like if you went out and bought furniture and you were going to buy like a kitchen set, one of the chairs had scars, would you buy it? You wouldn't.
Unless you like shabby chic.
Yeah. If you went out to buy a car and there was dents in the car, would you buy it? No. You want something that is as good as possible.
Yeah.
It's the same for the book. No one wants a book that's scarred, dented in whatever way because it wasn't edited.
Yeah.
No one's going to be impressed by that.
Yeah. I really encourage people to get an assessment done, because even the most experienced writer can sometimes not see holes in their structure.
The more experienced writers I've found, they welcome that.
Yeah.
They want to be hit with everything that people feel might be wrong with it, and then they can address it.
Yeah.
And sometimes.
And that saves a lot of time further on in the process, because you've already flagged all of these things. For instance, someone assessing it might say, well, these ideas are really good, but are they yours? Do you have permission to use them?
Yeah.
If you're writing a self-help book or something, we often have people writing self-help books, and they are borrowing some ideas from elsewhere, which is fine, but you have to make sure you have permissions, and that's where an editor can be really helpful.
Well, an editor can be helpful. I mean, all across from permissions to plagiarism to things like fact checking, source checking. Often we get people using quotes and they don't actually attribute it to the correct person, because it's like, I heard this person say it, but that person's actually quoting someone else.
Yeah.
So an editor really is an all-round purpose person who helps you with the entire book's content.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so in terms of the big picture, which one? There's lots of big pictures around.
Sorry, go.
Yeah.
Stop making jokes
now I've totally lost my...
In terms of the big picture...
we encourage every single book to have editing done.
Yeah.
Because we have just so many times people have said it's been edited, and then at the other end it's been a lot of work and headache once it's been in the design process.
Yeah.
I think too, though, you don't want to get that far down and then find out that the structure is not quite right.
I mean, it depends.
You've got something really fundamental missing.
Yeah, it also depends what you're doing. If you're submitting to a commercial publisher, your lack of editing and revision might be the difference between you getting accepted and rejected.
Yeah.
Because especially now there's faster turnarounds in publishing. I had a friend who was accepted by a commercial publisher. 9 months later, her book was out. So
wow, that's quick.
Yeah, that is really quick. And it's generally a lot quicker turnaround. So they do not have time to take a book that's 90% there because it's just too much work for them now.
Yeah.
They want a book that's 95% there. And if you're self-publishing, you want your book to be indistinguishable from one that's come from a commercial publisher,
Yeah.
because often some self-publishing gets that stigma of, well, why self-publishing,
Yeah.
and too many people do release products that aren't fully polished. And if they, when they're not, then people fully polished and people read it, go, well, this is why you self-publish. But if you actually put that time and care into it, nobody thinks that. People look at that, and and you do get plenty of examples of commercial publishers who then later come up and pick up self-published authors, but they know that author puts the time and energy into their work.
Yeah, and that's why they want to pick them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they know they're professional. All right, so our kind of advice for the week is
Get
an
edited.
editor. So we just want to remind people about our boot camp, our book writing boot camp, which is not this weekend but the next.
Which weekend?
Not this one but the next. So 27th and 28th of April.
That's not this one, that's the next one.
It is, yes. And so look out our website if you're interested. And we're also excited to, so it's book writing boot camp, 2 days where you will learn how to plan, write, publish and market your book. It's very intense. Les will make you cry because it's so intense.
Just make cry because I feel like it. It doesn't have to be intense.
We're also excited that we've
It'd be in
opened,
teepees if we wanted to. Igloos.
we are now, we
Nothing
have,
but intense. What do you
be
think we're
quiet.
camping?
So I was in Bali last week, Les.
Were you intense?
I wasn't in the tent, no.
You used a hotel room, I guess.
I have had a really bad cold since.
I know.
But we are very excited to announce that we're opening a second date for our writing and publishing
Oh, awesome.
retreat in Ubud, and it's going to be in first week of November. So I just released the dates
So
yesterday.
that's not this weekend and not next weekend. That's how many weekends away is that, Sam?
It's in November. So anyway, that's it from us today.
Not quite.
What?
What's on tonight?
Open mic
Oh,
night.
you didn't say it.
I already said that.
No, you didn't.
So
Rewind it.
launching this tonight. So
Yeah, but now talk about the rest of Open Mic Night where people can come and read their
open
things.
mic. Oh, well, open
What
mic
are you
night
reading,
is
Sam?
awesome.
Sam's reading again.
So open mic night is a really great night for everyone to get together, read their work, or just listen. You don't have to read.
And that's not next
But
week, and that's tonight.
this will be the feature book for tonight.
Will it? Oh.
Yes. We
Any
have
deal
door
for?
prizes, wine, cheese, crackers.
That's right, you could win a door.
Yeah. Okay, Les is getting silly now. We'll see you
Not
next
now.
week. Bye.
See ya.